Okay, so with us for this one, we have our Arsenal writer, Art de Roche, as well as Handbrake off regular and former Arsenal winger himself, Adrian Clarke, as well. First pod of the season, gents, and we're talking Arsenal. Welcome, by the way. Honestly, it's a brand new season, and I'm sure many of us feel like it's come quite quickly after the Euros as well. But let's talk about Arsenal's US tour, Adrian. You know, without being stateside, how ready for the new season do you think this team actually is?
Hi everybody. They're not ready. I don't think anybody's completely ready yet. Because look, Bukayo Saka's only just come back, hasn't he? Declan Rice, the number of players that David Raya, for example, none of the senior keepers were involved on the US tour. So they've got some work to do, but there's some good friendlies lined up against Leverkusen and Lyon. So that would tell us a little bit more. I liked most of what I saw on tour. Like the attitude was good, the players looked fit, and they were pressing hard. And there was some decent individual performances. Players like Gabriel Martinelli looked good. Kai Havertz too, and they'll be right. They'll be right as rain come Wolves on the 17th. But yeah, they're not at full pelt. I think defensively, they haven't been able to field anywhere near their strongest unit. As we saw last season, defensively, Arsenal are very, very good. Be interested to see what happens when Saliba, Gabriel partner up potentially with Calafiori, but we'll get to that later.
Let's talk Calafiori, but not now. Let's save that for a little later on. Art, Adrian's tone sounds quietly optimistic, but yeah, cautioning on getting too optimistic at the beginning of the season. But you saw how close Arsenal got to winning the Premier League last season. I think what was it? A couple of points between Arsenal and Manchester City. Lessons will have been learned, but do you feel Arsenal are ready and looking ahead to this new season, having dealt with the defeat of last season as well?
Yeah, I don't think you get within 2 points of winning a league title by a fluke, especially when you challenge the season before that. So from my perspective, I think they'd look at the last 2 years as almost a sign of confidence to go into a third season looking to challenge again. Of course, the big question is how well can you maintain what you did, especially in the second half of last season from Arsenal. And I think a lot of people may forget how slow they actually were at the start of last season as well, where it just felt like they weren't really in their groove yet, and then they suddenly hit it in January, February sort of time. So it'll be interesting to see how people, I guess, view the way they perform in the early weeks of the season, especially when they get into September and they have to play Manchester City and Tottenham as well. But for me, I think when you look at it from a season perspective, I'm, again, maybe similar to Adrian, quietly optimistic that they can put together another title challenge, because you don't do it 2 seasons in a row by accident.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, Adrian, is 2 seasons in a row, relentlessly, trying to get one up against Manchester City. But also, let's not ignore the fact that there's a lot of other Premier League teams who have bolstered their ranks this season, new managers, new coaches and all that. I mean, this is quite a relentless task. Do you think Arsenal are ready to be, I guess, next to Manchester City, the team to beat again?
Yeah, I think they are. Look, it was mentally tough for them, wasn't it, to lose the title, because it did go to the last day, remember, and there were, albeit faint hopes of a miracle on that final day. But so there was that disappointment to sort of they let that sink in over the summer, and I'm guessing it will fuel a challenge that's even more determined than ever. It's a young group. They're not fatigued by years and years of this. It's all relatively new to the majority of this team, challenging at the top end of the table. I think they're excited to be part of it. And I do believe, as they were at the start of last season, they were confident that they'd improve. I think this year that belief will be even stronger, that they're the team on the up, Arsenal, and that maybe Manchester City, fingers crossed for Arsenal fans, and maybe for English football, really, because of their dominance. As it's been so one-sided, hasn't it, in recent years. But maybe, just maybe, they'll have a backward step. And if they just go back a touch and Arsenal make a similar step forward this season, I do think Arsenal can end as champions, and they would have been deserving title winners last season. Really, they played well enough to be champions. Now it's a matter of getting over the line. I think that well, we know what Mikel Arteta's like. He's not gonna let up, is he? He's going to be driving them on, driving them on. Um, yeah, I'm actually more than quietly confident. I'm not going to go too far beyond that, but I do believe in this team. I do.
Yeah, I mean, Art, I'll come to Mikel Arteta in just a second, but just a quick one on that, Adrian. The reports over the summer about players like Martin Odegaard, showing discontent about how close they got last season and wanting more for this season. I mean, especially as team captain, you want to see players like that looking like they are still hungry, that actually second best is not enough. And for Mikel Arteta, if you're talking about trying to generate competition in this team, you want players that are going to go, do you know what? That we were good, but we can actually get better.
Yeah, you can't stand still, can you? There's no good patting yourself on the back and saying, "Didn't we do well?" Second place, first loser. The adage. So yeah, there'll be a real determination, and I think that last summer Arteta recognised the need to stabilise defensively, and look what happened. The best defensive record comfortably, and I think that this season there's an element of depth. He wants to improve that depth so they can challenge in the Champions League and the Premier League, because that's where the season faltered when they got a little bit fatigued at the end of that Champions League group phase. So that was a key part of the rebuild this summer. Phase two, we might see a little bit later on this summer, and that's Arsenal looking to redevelop the front end of the pitch. Because just in those big games, I'm thinking of Bayern Munich away, that really resolute goalless draw at the Etihad. Did Arsenal have the threat in those games? Did they really have the pace, enough magic, enough of a killer instinct to go and nick a low-scoring win? And the answer was no at that time. So I do expect Mikel Arteta and Edu to address that before the close of the window by reinforcing the attacking options. And once that's sorted, hopefully there's no turning back.
Yeah, I mean, look, these things are never easy, are they? But we'll definitely keep talking about that as well a little later on. Art, I guess, as Adrian's touched on it, Mikel Arteta's a fascinating one because he's heading into his fifth full season as Arsenal manager. Everyone remembers he won the FA Cup, but that was back in 2020. How quickly we forget those things, because at the end of the day, trophies in the cabinet is the thing. The Premier League is the thing. It's a big season for him, you'd like to think.
It is. I think at this moment as well, he still hasn't signed a new deal with Arsenal. So technically speaking, he's going into his final year. And for most people, I think it's fair to say that you'd expect him to sign on. But to do that, I also think he would want to enter, I guess, his next contract with some silverware on his table, because when you look at how Arsenal have progressed, they've actually progressed year on year from a points perspective. In every full season, they've done better than the last under him. But when people maybe not in tune with what Arsenal are doing look at it, they don't maybe realise the progress because there isn't a medal around the players' necks. So I think from, just an optics point of view, it probably is more important for the more general public when viewing Arsenal. And then for the club themselves, being able to make that next step and actually compete in the Champions League as well as the Premier League, as Adrian mentioned. I think that's where you look at just magic moments, really, that can really propel you to elevate into something different as a club and as a team. And that's what I think, if we're looking at the next few years of Arsenal, you'd be hoping for them to do after a couple of years of really pushing to challenge in the Premier League.
Yeah, Adrian, does winning a trophy, might not be the Premier League, just something to say, well, we've had a good season, we might not have made it to top spot, actually add to your validation as a player? What are you playing for if you haven't got a medal around your neck, right?
Oh no, trophies, of course they matter. They matter massively. So yeah, no, I expect Arsenal to win a trophy. I think if Arsenal don't win a trophy this season, it will be seen as an even bigger disappointment than last season and the year before. So, yeah, the pressure's on to a degree to win a trophy. But I think that the players themselves think they're capable of winning the Premier League. And if they believe it, then they've got a chance.
Well, that brings me to the question: how on earth do Arsenal go about overhauling the juggernauts? I mean, this is both for you two as well. Please, Adrian, start on Manchester City. I mean, look, we know of these insane runs they like to go on when everyone thinks they're out of the race, and they keep pulling it back.
No,
with
need
injured
a 10-point
personnel.
lead at Christmas.
They bring it back. I mean, come on. I mean, what's the reality here? Because we have to be realistic. How do Arsenal go ahead and do it this season again?
Well, it might not even be in Arsenal's hands. You know, if City played to their capabilities, they could get close to 100 points. And there's no shame in Arsenal not getting close to that. You know, year on year, the points have improved. 89 last year. They've got to get into the 90s. That's mission number one. And then it's a case of, you know, what can City do? And that's out. You know, Arsenal can't control that. So, yeah, get into the 90 points region, maybe closer towards the mid-90s. And they've got a fantastic opportunity. But that's so hard. You know, they're unbelievable second half of the season and still only got to 89. That one loss against Aston Villa ruined everything. So that's how fine the margins are. It's tough. They've got to just learn, haven't they? And learn to not have these off days. The off days against Fulham and Villa, maybe a City off day there, they nick a draw and they walk away. But Arsenal lost both those games, West Ham game as well. And those were the matches that really, really hurt them.
Yeah, I think on that as well, the Fulham game at home, the Tottenham game at home, really early in the season, when there are just moments within a game that you don't realise at the time how influential they could be. Like Jorginho, a minute after Bukayo Saka makes it 2-1, he just gives the ball away and Tottenham go and equalise within a minute. And those are the moments I think you need to cut out. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but when you look back at last season and how Arsenal progressed, I think there were a lot more of those moments in the first half of the year. And then you saw them really assured in themselves throughout, I'd say, 99% of the second half of the season. So I think when you, self-assess, there are areas where they can really cut out really silly mistakes and tip the scales more in their balance going into this season.
Okay. Well, it is the Athletic Football Podcast talking Arsenal's title credentials. If you have something you think we should be talking about or want to let us know what you think of the podcast this season, then you can email us. It's tafcpod@theathletic.com. Send in your questions for David Ornstein, Matt Slater, or anyone else you want to hear from. It could be Adrian, it could be Art, for that matter. All right, let's get back to it. And it's time for a bit of transfer talk. Here with the lowdown on Arsenal's new Italian defender, Riccardo Calafiori, is our Serie A correspondent, James Horncastle.
It's worth reflecting on where Calafiori was this time last year. I mean, he was still at Basel. He started the season with them, and he didn't move to Bologna until the final days of the summer transfer window, where he moved for €4.5 million. Now, he moved to Basel as a fullback, but towards the second half of the season, when the sporting director strangely stepped in as head coach, the sporting director began playing him as a centre-back. And yeah, that gave Calafiori's agent some food for thought, because there's a feeling that if Calafiori progressed as a centre-back, he had a far higher ceiling. Bologna were persuaded, okay, we'll sign your client and we'll play him as a centre-back. He was the tactical revelation of last season in Serie A because of this John Stones-like willingness to go into midfield in build-up situations for the team and then have the courage to surge forward. Last year, he got 5 assists from playing centre-back. I think Arsenal are looking at this player as a hybrid player, someone who is at the avant-garde of centre-back play, The strange thing is, I think he will go back to playing as a fullback. I think that's been the brief. I say it's strange. It's strange on the basis of everything that his agent had done over the last year to persuade teams to look at him as a centre back. I'm sure there will be moments over the course of this season when he can rotate as a left-sided centre back. I'm sure there'll be situations where Arsenal, might build up with a three or build up with a number of centre backs. I'm sure he will be happy to be inverted as a fullback or a centre back when the occasion necessitates.
The avant-garde of centre backs there. That's a lovely way to put it, isn't it? But I guess, Calafiori is a really interesting one. I'm a football fan and I see this news, and I'm a big Arsenal fan as well, and I'm like, do Arsenal need a centre-back, Adrian, considering that was a position that Arsenal did really well in last season defensively, best defensive record in the Premier League. Sounds like a phenomenal player, but is it a player that Arsenal need?
Yeah, because Arsenal got lucky last season. Saliba and Gabriel didn't get injured. And, and I think Arteta has said this recently. He said, look, we don't want to gamble again, because they've obviously got Timber that's fit again. Can't really rely on Tomiyasu's fitness, unfortunately. So, I think they did need a player that could play at centre-back or at full-back. Left-back was a problem position last season. Effectively, once Arteta lost a little bit of faith in Zinchenko's defending, it was kind of a job share, wasn't it, between Kivior and Tomiyasu at left back. And I don't think either are the long-term solution in that role. So Calafiori brings that physicality. He's another centre back. So he likes a back four. I think in 12 of the last 15 games, Arsenal played with, four central defenders, which gives them so much aerial power inside both boxes. But Calafiori gives the balance because he's left-footed. He played as a left-sided centre-back for Bologna in a footballing team that really wanted to play out from the back beautifully, and he looked great. So I think it's a lovely fit. I really do, and I do, provided he's fit enough and he settles in okay in training, and it'll be him or Timber that starts the season at left-back, and I can't wait to see him wear the red and white. Yeah, he looked a top player at the Euros.
He did, but you know what they say about buying straight off a competition. I'm just saying it. Anyway, Art, I didn't realise this actually till we were doing this podcast, that Arsenal spent over £240 million on 11 defenders since Arteta took over. And James Horncastle naturally said in his piece there that, Calafiori offers attacking options as much as he does defending options for Arsenal. Is this why he's vital for this team then?
Yeah, I definitely think so. When you look at Arsenal last year, and Adrian touched on it there, at left back with Zinchenko, I think for some games he's fine there because Arsenal will be much more dominant and have a lot of the ball. So he can just fire passes into midfield and do what he did at the start of his Arsenal career very well. But his shortcomings are when he's asked to defend in behind, and we saw that against Liverpool last season at Anfield with Mo Salah. We saw it at Villa Park and at the Emirates against Aston Villa when he was 1-on-1 against Leon Bailey. And we saw it last week against Liverpool in relation to Mo Salah again. So I think that's an area where there was definite room for improvement, and Calafiori not just being a natural defender, but having that presence should hopefully help in that regard. And then going forward, I wouldn't be too surprised if he's used similarly to Ben White, just almost as the inverse, really, because I know there's a lot of talk about inverting him from left back, but watching him play, there's a lot of times where he's happy to just dribble up the touchline as well. So if Arsenal want to be a bit more balanced in the way they attack, I think it's a really good move to have someone who's comfortable both playing inside but also going on the outside as well, because it just opens up the pitch that much more.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to go back to what I said. If it's particularly a position Arsenal need a player in, Adrian touched on it earlier about, the lack of goals on the other side, right? And you've dropped a piece today looking at games where Arsenal didn't manage to score. I think it was like 4 or 5 matches last season. Arsenal didn't manage to score a goal. Yes, defensive solidity is there, but I'm watching Arsenal sometimes frustrated, going, where are the ideas up front? Where's that opportunity, like Bayern Munich, as Adrian mentioned, to unlock these very rigid defences?
And one thought that's gone through my mind, like when watching these games, is why not have Saka on the left and Martinelli on the right, so you can just get crosses in so much easier. But then I guess if you're now adding a left back who actually can get forward a bit more and does cross the ball well, got 5 assists last season, I think Ben White got similar numbers off the right, then you already have a different option to add to the mix. And I think that's really encouraging going into this season. So yeah, hopefully there's a little bit more to come to just add a few more solutions, and hopefully there are less games where Arsenal fail to come up with an answer to really, I guess, rigid defences.
I guess, Adrian, I was joking about the Euros, but, you see a player who actually tactically can play in different formations. But also, I was just thinking about the Thiago Motta connection. Arteta and Motta are really good mates, and they play a similar type of football. So, not that this is a direct replica of what happened in Bologna, but you can see how those tactics and ideas merge into this Arsenal team as well.
Completely. Yeah, I mean, imagine if he's come from a side in Serie A that played long ball football, and he turns up at Arsenal that didn't play out from the back. I don't think Arsenal would even look at players that play for those clubs just because the transition's too big. So no, Bologna and Arsenal, similar-ish styles of play, and I think that makes him a good fit. I mean, Mikel Arteta doesn't sign anyone unless they play in multiple positions, right? I mean, you can't just be. I mean, maybe you can just be a centre back. He'll let the centre backs off and the goalies, but everyone else, look at them all. All of the players: Trossard, Havertz, Ødegaard, Rice. Maybe if Arsenal, go through the signing of Mikel Merino, another multifaceted player. We talked about Calafiori, White, all of them. Jurriën Timber. He wants players that can adapt to different shapes, and the reason he wants that is because Arsenal have about 10 different shapes during a game. The way that they build up, it's not the same every time that they have the ball. And they might look like a 4-3-3 when they kick off, but during the build-up play and in and out of possession, that they don't always look the same. So it's important to have players that are comfortable in different parts of the field. And I'm all for that because it just makes you more fluid, doesn't it, and more unpredictable.
Yeah, I guess very similarly to Kai Havertz, when Mikel Arteta seems to be focused on a particular kind of player, he's already seeing it, how it's going to operate within this team in ways perhaps we're not seeing it as, the fan or the journalist in this respect. But I guess for both of you as well, and please start on this one, is what does this really say about what Arteta's looking to do this season? What does it say about his intentions and where he wants to take this Arsenal team this season?
For me, I just see it as someone who wants to make things as solid as possible. The foundation, I think everything Arteta does starts with the back four. And that's from his first real signings being Pablo Mari and Cedric Soares in the January after he came in December. And they're not the most successful signings ever, but those were his first kind of thoughts. 6 months later, he then signs Gabriel, who's probably the first successful signing of his reign. So I think for him, he wants to have dominance. He prefers that word over the word control. And that really comes from the way his goalkeeper plays, his defence plays, pushing really high up the pitch. And I think he wants to set the stall out really early to be able to almost have that record of being the Premier League's strongest defence maintained for the next year. And then from there is when you figure out the more free-flowing, freestyling kind of moves of the attack, because there is a bit more license to take more risk in those positions. So for me, I see someone who wants to be dominant from minute one and really put the Premier League in a chokehold. whether they're actually able to do that is another question. But yeah, that's how I've kind of read him making Calafiori his first signing of the summer, and then hopefully, there's more to come.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I like the turn of phrase. They're getting the Premier League in a chokehold. I kind of can see that pleasing Mikel Arteta. Let's brick by brick. He's building a squad, isn't he? That is getting closer and closer to Manchester City. On with less financial, strength. So I think they've been really astute in the purchases that they've made. But for me, the next phase is once you get past defensive depth. It has to be game-changing ability in forward areas and a little bit more electric pace. Now, we also got some quickies already, but I think someone with a little bit more special pace or special finishing ability is what's needed to take Arsenal to the next level. Hopefully they get that this summer, but if they don't, that will be next on the list.
Yeah, I mean, talking about where Arsenal go moving forward in terms of transfers, I guess the name Mikel Merino doesn't scream pace or what you've just mentioned, Adrian. But
No.
Midfield cover is still needed. Art. Do we see this business being conducted? And does it look like a player like Mikel Merino, who shone at the Euros again, might be coming to Arsenal? Yeah,
I think it makes sense. It doesn't seem as it's as close at the minute as most reports say, but from just looking at it from a stylistic point of view, I think it helps actually having a midfielder play in midfield. Obviously, when Kai Havertz joined last summer, the talk was that he would be playing in that left 8 role, but he just didn't perform there, and I think that's mostly because he wasn't confident. For one thing, but he just wasn't comfortable in that area of the pitch. I don't feel much more natural and imposing as a striker. So when that happens, you have to reassess that left 8 position again. And I think Mikel Merino, one of the real, I guess, highlights of him is how many duels he does win, and that presence that we spoke about with Calafiori. He also brings that. And looking at that position. When Granit Xhaka left, one of the big words that Mikel Arteta used about Xhaka was presence. He used the same word about Declan Rice, who later moved into that role, but maybe a bit more natural, deeper in midfield. So it'll be really interesting to see how, if Merino does join Arsenal, how that midfield functions and, again, how dominant they can be because of the presence they bring, but also a technical ability that is needed to shine with Martin Ødegaard pulling the strings next to them.
Yeah, Adrian, back to your point about pace, I couldn't help but watch Bukayo Saka last season, the amount of games that he played, and you're asking, you know what, perhaps there's another option here, perhaps, for Arsenal in the summer, or an opportunity, I should say, to maybe bring some cover, to create some competition in these spaces as well. Because, you're creating competition in the back line, you're creating competition technically in the midfield, but actually it's those offensive positions that Arsenal still struggle to have competition in, and actually a position that's so effective to where Arsenal need to get to for the season at hand.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think most Arsenal supporters would, really. I think midfield was important, by the way. Remember El Neni's left. Lokonga's gone out on loan. Jorginho and Partey are both over 30. So I know that Mourinho's 28, isn't he, Mourinho? But I think that comes into the thinking. Yeah, Bukayo Saka needs a little bit more rotation. I've always felt that maybe Martinelli could switch over to that side, or Jesus has done well for City in that role in the past, and maybe that hasn't been utilised enough. But if Mikel's not for that, then he needs to bring somebody in, especially if Reiss Nelson is going to leave, and I'm guessing that will happen. I think Reiss Nelson, Eddie Nketiah are a little bit like Emile Smith-Rowe. They've just come to that point where it's just best for them, for their careers, to get first team football elsewhere, and that will leave a hole or two holes that need filling. And if Arsenal choose wisely, then you could look at their squad in a few weeks' time. I think, whoa, this is the real deal. So yeah, I'm convinced that Edu and Mikel Arteta have a couple of players in mind for right wing and for centre forward that they would dearly love to fill.
Yeah, you spoke about Emile Smith Rowe there, Adrian, and just want to take a moment of silence because I think I join all the other Arsenal fans in saying, good luck, sir. Honestly, understandably, you can understand why a player like him, I think he only made 4 starts last season, would want to move on for more football. But does it worry, or should it worry Arsenal fans that they are losing great academy prospects like this to other teams? You know, I know the fee was decent, but you know, this is a lad that has etched his trade at Arsenal and really did show promise under Mikel Arteta as well.
It happens. It just it's circumstance more than anything else. If Arsenal were a 5th, 6th place side at the moment, he'd be playing most weeks. It's just that the standards have risen, and he hasn't been able to keep up because of injuries, not because he's not good enough. I actually think Emile Smith Rowe, had he stayed fit and continued with his development pathway, I think he would still be at the club now. But he's had to take a step back because he's lost ground on the players around him, and he just has to go out now and rediscover his best self. Yeah, it doesn't worry me because you want your first team to be mega strong, don't you? And Arsenal's first team is the strongest it's been since the Invincibles, no doubt about that. It's maybe an unlucky time to be an academy graduate coming through because you've got to be outrageously good to get a chance. It's as simple as that. But that's not Mikel Arteta's fault. You know, his job is to win the title, win trophies, not to give promising players a chance. They have to be good enough, and it's hard to be good enough when he's building a squad of this class.
It's selling something, I should say. Arsenal need to get better at art. I mean, the FIFA Smith Rowe looks quite good, but historically, especially for young players on Arsenal's books, it hasn't been a really successful kind of exercise for Arsenal.
No, and luckily for them, it hasn't needed to be, in the sense where other clubs may be in a rush to sell all their players, all their young homegrown players, especially with PSR kicking in over the last year or so. For Arsenal, they've been, especially since I'd say 2019, they've been quite ruthless in how they've managed finances, getting rid of players before their contracts end, really trimming the wage bill. But I think you're right in the sense that actually selling players for either their value or even more than their value is something they haven't done as well as other clubs across the Premier League, whether it be clubs in a similar position to them in Europe or those even further down in mid-table. It's always seemed that Arsenal sell players for 5, maybe 10 million. And then in recent seasons with Smith Rowe, Flo Balogun last season, they've been able to get closer to the 25-30 million mark. And that's something that really needs to continue, because when you look at the talent of the players coming through the academy, I think they have really good assets there. But in recent seasons, they just haven't got as much money out of them as they could have done. A prime example of that is probably Omari Hutchinson, who left for peanuts a couple of years ago to Chelsea, and now has joined Ipswich Town for around 25 million. It's something Arsenal need to look at and say, okay, Chelsea have actually done really well there. How can we do similar? So yeah, I think going into the next few weeks of the transfer window, that hopefully is an area where they look at. But the one thing I would say to caveat that is they still need to keep their homegrown quota in mind for registration for the new season. So you can't just sell everyone of your homegrown
Isn't
talents.
isn't there something? Football is broken. The rules are broken if it comes down to clubs up and down the country having to sell the players that the supporters love to see the most, homegrown products. This accounts balance sheets shouldn't be coming into it. The way that you construct your profit and your losses, it's so boring and so anti-football, in my opinion, that these rules. And I know they're going to change, but it sickens me really that you have to cash in on your homegrown players. That's not what anyone wants to do.
I'm with you on that one. Just to finish on this then, gents, for both of you, Adrian, please kick off. If Nketiah does end up leaving, there's been bids for Marseille, been made quite public. Does that then leave Arsenal light up front? Havertz did a fantastic job last season. Gabriel Jesus, I mean, he's looking great in pre-season, but his fitness can't be guaranteed season long. Do Arsenal have a problem there? Let's be honest.
Well, yeah, if Nketiah, well, regardless of whether he goes or stays, they need a striker, in my opinion. But if he goes, 100%, Arsenal need a front player. Now, the choice is, do they go for a number one, that leapfrogs, Havertz and Jesus, or do they go for someone of equal standing with a Havertz or Jesus or a really strong backup? I think plan A should be to go almost above them. I love Havertz and I love what he brought to the team last season, and I want to see more of it. And Jesus is one of my favourite players to watch, and has been for the last couple of years. He's a joy. But to challenge for the Premier League and the Champions League, Arsenal need somebody that's more clinical. They just do. Just whether that's someone who comes off the bench or whether that's someone that starts. Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus have amazing qualities between them, but I wouldn't label either of them lethal. And that is the difference. City have Haaland, he's lethal. Alvarez, lethal. Liverpool's a different case with Nunez, but successful teams have players that don't miss too many chances, and that cost Arsenal a little bit last year. So someone quick, someone clinical to come in would be lovely. I mean,
Says it again. Says it again. do you buy that art? Someone lethal, someone that can gazump Havertz and Jesus, someone whose sole operative is to score goals.
Yeah, I think the really interesting part of this topic is the caliber and the timing, because if you do choose to go above a Havertz and a Jesus this summer, the options aren't really obvious. And the one player that's just in my mind as an example that I think really would fit well at Arsenal is Isak, and I just know that won't happen this summer. So for me, I'm probably looking more at that Bukayo Saka cover/competition profile, because I feel that's what will benefit the squad most. I know we're talking about where Arsenal fell short in terms of goal scoring last year, but last season was also their record for goals scored in a Premier League season. So I don't think we should forget that. And yeah, if you're bringing someone in, I don't mind someone complementary to then go for someone like Isak next summer. But that's very, I think, wishful thinking from my point. So probably Adrian's on the right tracks, I think.
He would be perfect. He's got that mobility, the speed, and he is really clinical. I mean, Osimhen is exciting as an option, isn't he? But Gyökeres for me would be the more natural Nketiah replacement, someone that probably a little bit stronger than Eddie, but he's maybe not going to usurp a Havertz or Jesus. But yeah, my mind just always goes back to City away and Bayern Munich away, even Bayern Munich at home. When Arsenal, they're on top, what can they do? And they just fell short against the elite opposition. And that is the next step. But as Art rightly points out, maybe Arsenal, if the right person isn't available, then they have to wait.
Yeah, I mean, left to Adrian alone, it'd just be a team full of attackers at this rate, honestly. Gents, thank you so much for your time, Adrian, and also Arsenal fans. Make sure you check out Handbrake Off this season for more dedicated coverage as well. And if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to leave us a review or send us an email with your thoughts on the topics we discuss, or what you think we'd like to cover, or what you think we should cover, I should say. And the email address is tafcpod@theathletic.com. We'll be back tomorrow for another deep dive into the biggest story of the day. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to watch more episodes of the show, please subscribe to the channel. We'll be joined by the likes of David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the season. If you'd like to listen to the episodes in full in audio form, search The Athletic FC wherever you get your podcasts from.